we are clear on the objective of the summit and the expected outcome, so that we work toward that. We work toward that, which are as follows. We call you, and of course we have experts here, and they will present and summarize the current economic situations of the country, and identify primary barriers to productive growth in the economy. Also, we will facilitate discussions to identify initiatives. So prepare. We would also like to foster collaboration between the government, private sector, and our development partners to develop and partner. I think for the first time we probably need to be serious about this, because we've been talking about partnership for a long time, and implement actionable strategies. And then to recommend courses of action to addressing the barriers and impediments to growth. And then together formulate a plan to draft a national economic development roadmap tailored to specific sectors. The expected outcome? To prioritize policies to support key drivers to foster resilient and sustainable economic growth in the country. And that probably also will dictate the way the budget is formulated. And of course, development of a platform for ongoing dialogue and collaboration among the stakeholders on economic policy direction and growth. So I would like to believe, therefore, and I will just be emphasizing on these points, and we should be finished by 11 o'clock. You're so very worried people already here. And then together in this conference hall, and over the next day, of course, because as stakeholders, we are concerned about the sluggish nature of the country's progress in development. That's our common concern. And so together, we will endeavor to look for solutions on critical questions that will be raised during the course of the summit. And for the government more specifically, and this is probably a big turnaround, we have come to a point, I think, where we must accept, as custodians and designers of development policies, to acknowledge that we do not have unlimited fountains of knowledge and ready-made solution to critical questions that our people, and especially the sectoral players, entitled to ask about the effectiveness of the policies or the lack of it to address our predicament. I think for too long, ministers, for too long, we have been working in silos and protecting our little worlds. On the part of the government, we should appreciate that development policies and their supporting strategic plans, action plans, should not be designed with the idea that they exist in a vacuum. Talking about transformation. On the contrary, they affect economic players. And therefore, we must appreciate that in the course of implementing the national strategies, the economic players have a duty to constantly engage with the government on the effectiveness of the policies and the strategic actions to achieve the desired outcome. That space must be allowed. Must be allowed. And I don't think we are seriously doing that. I don't think so. And in that regard, the active partnership, as we heard, and collaboration must exist. On the part of the economic players, which you represent, it is important to understand, however, that while the government does appreciate that strategic policy actions affect private sector profitability, the reverse is also true. When it comes to the important responsibility of the government to implement the national budget to deliver essential services like health, security, education, and infrastructure development. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance will be making a detailed presentation at this issue from the fiscal lenses later on. And there is a direct correlation. There is a direct correlation between the tendency of the government towards adopting a fiscal strategy that resorts to deficit financing as the method of funding the annual budget and the performance of the economy as reflected in the growth and decline of our GDP over the 46 years of our existence as an independent nation. I'm surprised. But, and that last point, ladies and gentlemen, is important to note, because it is easy for us to point. It is easy for us to point to our 46 years journey as to some events as the cause of our sluggish performance. When in reality, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pattern we observed over the years. Over the years, the negative effect of COVID-19 and riot are just examples. I just want to put us into that frame of mind, ladies and gentlemen. So my point is, there must be, and this is what we will be driving at, there must be deeper and more involved fundamental issues. There must be deeper and more fundamental issues that go beyond observed statistics, which must involve a serious and critical look at the possible causes of the observed undesired outcome, which in turn, ladies and gentlemen, means delving into the very structure and essence of the way we organize ourselves in our endeavor to grow the economy. And therefore, it must point to the need to pursue appropriate institutional, structural, attitudinal, legal, and might I add, cultural reforms. That message comes up and up and up and again from my advisors to me, as we will be hearing more in the various presentations. Without reforms, Solomon Islands is unlikely to achieve upper income status by 2050. Well, that's 30 years down the line. I'm uncomfortable. I'm really disturbed, ladies and gentlemen, by the revelation that assuming historical growth, the fundamentals continue. GDP growth averages 3.2% over the period 2024 to 2050. And as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, Solomon Islands' real GDP growth has fluctuated and grew at 2.4% on average over the last 30 years. I don't know whether we know that. In terms of average contribution to growth, for example, services sector contributed 2.2%. Primary sector contributed 0.7%. And industry sector contributed 0.3% over the last 10 years. And I'm very uncomfortable with the date of 2030 for the country to attain and sustain a GDP growth of 7%. We must aim higher. Aim higher. And with our population now standing at 756,673 and growing at the alarming rate of 2.2% annually, we will reach just under 1 million by 2030. And if we fail to achieve the sustain the desired level of economic growth rate, the country will be staring down the barrel of absolute poverty. It is a position we do not want to find ourselves in. The good news, and I'll wind up very soon at about in 1 hour's time. The good news is we have all the potentials to reverse the situation if we put our heads together and play our part in the new direction that we will agree upon after the summit. I want to start off, of course, by saying that as a nation and people, we are truly thankful We are truly thankful that God has placed us in one of the most peaceful corners of the world. I don't know whether you know that. Peaceful corners of the world. We do not have to wake up the next day to find the whole central business district bombed to ashes, or suffer persecution for our beliefs, or suffer ethnic hatred and prejudice to the undesirable scale we see in other parts of the world as you turn your TVs on. As a matter of fact, the level of atrocities and calamities, both natural and man-made, we see happening in other parts of the world as we are talking now, made our own experiences of the occurrences of Mickey Mouse affair. Oh, I must qualify that. But that is not to say, ladies and gentlemen, that is not to say that we should not learn any lessons from it. The ethnic crisis, for example, as highlighted by the Prime Minister, cost Australian and New Zealand taxpayers $21.3 billion over 10 years to rescue us from ourselves and to set the country back on track after we collapsed in the year 2000. And I guess the lesson is we would be fools to allow the country to go down that path again. Just imagine what difference it will make if the $21.3 billion is channeled to areas that will generate economic growth. We will be up there somewhere. And I'm mentioning this occurrence in passing, ladies and gentlemen, because it is always referenced as one of the causes of the sluggish nature of our economic performance. The other being Cyclone Namu in 1986, the full-scale riot in 2006, the global financial crisis 2007 to 2009, COVID-19 in 2019, and another full-scale riot in 2021. Yes, these are hurdles. These are hurdles in our journey and point of reference, but they should not deter us to set in motion strategic actions to achieve our objectives. They should not. And as a matter of fact, our approach should be, are there lessons to learn from these occurrences so that we can place the country in a position where we can effectively mitigate the effects of the occurrences that are beyond our control and to avoid those that are within our control. And I guess my point in directing this as I wind down, our attention attention to this development is that to this point is to emphasize the glaring fact that this is a country full of potentials. And I'm zeroing down now to what I want you guys, all of us, to look at seriously. And I will be commenting on quickly on the sectors that have been identified as having a potential to drive the economy. We boast, colleagues, in tourism, we boast to have the longest lagoon in the world, the largest high-rise inland lake in the region, or if not the world, beautiful natural beaches and islands, and rich cultural heritage as a member of Coral Triangle Initiative, together with Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Timor-Leste. We boast to have some of the best diving spots in Asia Pacific. We have all of it. All it takes to support a vibrant, profitable tourism industry, but we are struggling to attract tourists into this country. What's wrong? Out of the 2.8 hectares of land surface in the country, we have arable agricultural land that remain idle in various locations around the country that can support a vibrant agricultural development. We obviously fail to take advantage of that. Apart from investment in GPOL by New Britain Palm Oil and the activities in this sector by our rural farmers is in pockets of cocoa and cash crop farms in Kasumi land. I also understand we are facing a situation where our coconut plantations, ladies and gentlemen, it is shocking, our coconut plantations around the country are getting senile, which may bring the coconut industry to a grinding halt in the next couple of decades. What are we doing about that? What can we do to to encourage greater participation of our rural farmers. And what is stopping us from revisiting large-scale commercial rice farming in Solomon Islands? What is stopping us? The same can be said of fisheries, both deep sea and inshore. Of course, downstream processing and value adding is the directions we are pursuing as far as our tuna resources are concerned. The question that remains in this sector is, how can we encourage the full participation of our people in the development of our inshore fisheries, which promises huge potential? For example, all the lagoons in the country are suitable for seaweed farming. Although dubbed the sunset industry and in declining, the forestry sector remains an important contributor to our efforts to grow the economy. What is stopping us from enforcing the 8% quota for real and serious downstream processing and value adding that cabinet and government already passing pennies? Because today, no more now. We're still exporting logs. What is stopping us from replicating Egon and KPL models in other provinces as a strategy to address the crucial issue of sustainable and environment-friendly development of our fast-depleting loggable forests? The mining sector is the sunrise sector. We are obviously struggling to ensure that the country benefit from the exploitation of our mineral resources because our mining laws are archaic. A substantial part of the regulatory framework that guides the operations of the mining companies in the country are embedded in mining agreements, not the Mining Act. Therefore, there is no uniformity in the way different government agencies deal with mining companies. I'll stop there now before you meet one lawyer. All of us, my message now, all of us have a part to play in achieving the objectives and expected outcome of this summit. On its part, of course, the government agrees with the call that without the transformational reform agenda, we will not be able to achieve and sustain the desired outcome of the economic growth. And I have a list of things that government will do and finish, but we'll probably leave that during the course of the discussions and like that when the government will highlight the reforms that in the infrastructure, in communication and connectivity, ongoing digital transformation program, reform in the mining sector, reform in the energy sector, reform in forestry sector, reform in the reform of our tax system, and the strategy to encourage the participation of rural farmers, a strategy to attract high quality foreign direct investment, land reform, financial inclusion, and of course the very important one, of course, addressing corruption, and probably I'll end up with that. It is very, very concerning. We can talk about all of these good things, ladies and gentlemen. We can talk about all of these good things. It's very concerning that the country is ranked. Do you know that? It is ranked 104 out of 140 countries in the Corruption Perception Index. Wow. We cannot sideline that, ladies and gentlemen. And if we ignore it, people talk no more. No. We must take it seriously because it determines whether investors will come in this country or no more. This is in the high side of the index, which suggests, ladies and gentlemen, that the country is very vulnerable to corrupt practices. As part of the reform that the Minister of Finance is pursuing, we will take a determined step to work with relevant authorities to address the specific areas that our governance system is vulnerable to corrupt practices. We are also strengthening the Office of the Auditor General with the view to making it independent so that it can decide on staffing issues and terms and conditions and so we operate independently. I'll stop there, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking forward to a productive, very, very, very productive outcome of this summit. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll invite the Minister of Planning to come and talk for another 3 hours more.
Ladies and gentlemen, give another round of applause for the Minister of Finance.